relationship with Him isn't growing, they do something about it. And the simple keep doing whatever they were doing that kept taking their time away from God. And so we're clear, the second half of the proverb says, the simple keep going, and what? Did you read it? Pay the penalty. They pay the penalty. The penalty for what? Well, for refusing to act on what they see. They pay the penalty because they see no connection between the choices of today and the experiences of tomorrow. I saw no reason to listen to Google Maps 1 mile earlier. Okay? But you begin to see that there's a need to change. But the simple don't do that. They overlook the fact that every path has a destination, and if you keep moving at it, you're going to reach it. You know, back in 2009, I don't know if you remember the circumstances, but David Letterman announced that he had been misbehaving with certain female members of his staff. USA Today quoted him as saying, "I'm terribly sorry that I put the staff in that position. Inadvertently, I just wasn't thinking ahead." Yep. Now, David Letterman, I find to be very funny. Okay? Got a weird beard at this moment in his life. But, you know, he's funny as a man that I know on the planet here. But would you call him prudent? Maybe not. He goes on and he says, "My wife has been horribly hurt by my behavior, and when something happens like that, you try to fix it." And let me tell you, folks, I've got my work cut out for me. I don't know if you know or remember. Actually, the only reason it came out is because one of the women tried to extort money from him. To let it out, thought that he paid money. The sad part about not making course corrections, not only does the simple person himself pay a penalty, but often a lot of people around him pay a penalty as well. His wife, his children, his co-workers. You know, the following scenario describes how simple react to problems, if you will. Now, I'm not bipolar or schizophrenic here, but I'm going to do two sides of the conversation, okay? So, you know that's probably going to be a problem. I really ought to. And the person says, "Are you going to do something about that?" No, I'm just probably going to keep going. But don't you see? Oh, yeah. Shouldn't you do something about it? Yeah, I probably should. You're right, I should. What are you going to do? I think I'm just going to keep going. Well, don't you see? Yeah, I probably should stop that. I should stop doing this or that or whatever. I should. I'm not arguing with you. Well, what are you going to do? Just keep going. Now, sounds like a silly conversation, let alone I'm having it together with myself. See, the simple thinks I'm going to drive towards the wall, but when I get there, I'm not going to hit it. Really? Excuse me? It's going to happen. Yeah, I'm going to keep going, and when I get there, it's just going to work out. Something will happen, or I'll think of something when I get there. Really? Yeah. Don't you think? Yeah. But I'm not going to do that. The simple just keep going. You would hate to be called simple when you put it in that terms. But if you're 30 years old or 50 years old or 80 years old and we see a problem in the future because of our path, we need to get off that path. If we don't, we are simple-minded, naive, trying to pull the wool over our own eyes, if you will. You know, it's not somebody else trying to do it, it's us. Simple-minded. You know, a parent notices that their son or daughter tends to talk back and lose their temper. And as they grow a little older, they do the same thing to their teacher or their coach, and the parent thinks, when they grow up, this could be a problem. And a concerned grandparent says, I'm worried about that. Mom says, yeah, me too. But figuring out how to positively and encouragingly teach their child how to submit and take direction, it's just too painful. It takes work. And so they don't do anything. They hope that by luck and in unanticipated circumstances, their little hothead, if you will grow out of his or her temper and those hissy fits that they throw. But if you ever work with the public, you know the hissy fits still continue. That child grows up to go from job to job to job because he or she hasn't controlled their mouth, or so they keep getting fired. Or they quit because somebody tried to correct them, and guess what? They're just mean to me. I'm going to go find me a different job. You know, those of you who are in the workforce, you know that's what we hear. I just shake my head today. I'm not going to call somebody simple at work, but I'm just telling you. Hello? You know, eventually the money in that paycheck runs out, and you got to come back to work. I'm sorry. Preaching the choir, I know, probably there. You know, a 20-something knows that he's gaining a little weight. But hey, that's what happens, you know? Especially, you know, when your wife gets pregnant. You know, your metabolism slows down, but your appetite doesn't. A friend says, you know, when you're 40, this could be a problem. Oh, I know. You know, I always say I gained 20 pounds with each child. It never left. Simple-minded, didn't make a course correction. And at 46, then their first coronary, they decided to figure out how to exercise and eat right. Something drastically changed the course, didn't it? But by then, the damage has already been done. A couple things, you know, we really need to get on a budget. We need to figure out where our money's going and how we can give to God and have some leftover to help others. When we retire, we need some leftover to help ourselves too. That'd be nice to have some money, wouldn't it? But then different things catch their eyes, bling, if you will, and besides, budgeting is so mundane. Got to keep track of things. And so they drive towards the wall, hoping that something miraculous will happen just before they hit. So how do you choose the right path? Well, observation number 3 here. Prudent people know that it's not what they see that makes a difference. It's what they do. You have to do things. You make course corrections, if you will. You have to do something to make a course correction. You take action, you step off a path and you get onto another one. You get off the highway and go to a different direction. It's almost always hard because we are creatures of habit. We're creatures of momentum. We naturally continue to do what we're used to doing. And if we're used to overeating feels natural to us. If we're used to losing our temper is natural to us. If we're used to online chat rooms or indiscreet pictures, that's what we're used to. Momentum carries us in the same directions. So to change directions means, though, that you almost always need to give up something. There's a corollary. When you see danger, it almost always requires sacrifice, which is why most of us don't do it. I have to say no to that second donut. I'm not saying the first donut's bad. I'm just saying the second, third, and maybe the fourth donut's bad. Okay? And this is where it gets ironic. When prudent people act, they often look foolish, if you will. They do things that others aren't doing. They swim against the stream, if you will. When they have a right in the people that are around them to lash out at somebody because somebody did something against them, they look a little weak. Boy, that's not right. They should do something about that. You see, they do things that others aren't doing. They act as if then is now, and change course before the wall ever hits them. They have to change. They realize that if you look forward, if I do this, that's going to be the response. You're looking ahead. You're looking ahead. If you've ever played chess, if you want to be successful, the more moves ahead that you can think about, the better off you are. The better off you are. But if you're living one move at a time, chess, you will not last in a chess tournament long. have to be looking further ahead. You have to be looking further ahead. And when you behave prudently, you usually will suffer some type of embarrassment because nobody else is doing it. Remember when the voices cry in the wilderness about 4 or 5 years ago were saying, save, don't spend everything, save, 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 save now, save some. It's going to go in ebbs and waves. In his book, Andy Stanley writes about a man named Buddy. And it's kind of an interesting story. He was kind of an acquaintance of Andy Stanley. And Buddy decided that he was going to spend about $40,000 and put a billboard in a forest. That seems pretty smart, doesn't it? No roads, but there were some roads around it, and he puts this big billboard, spends $40,000, 2 sides on it, and he gets it all lit up, has electricity run to it, all these sort of things, right? And can you imagine this? People going, and better yet, he got people to advertise on it. Now, I don't know how much he was charging. Probably not a whole lot, okay? One side was the lottery. I'm not going to go there. This is down in Georgia, all right? So he does this, and so years go by, and people begin to look like, buddy, that's not a wise choice. But guess what? A few years later, in comes some yellow equipment. They start moving things. Guess what? A new highway comes in, and this section where that billboard's at is going to be a billboard-free section of the highway around Atlanta. Guess what? The billboard's already there. So they had to grandfather it in. And so now on this stretch, when you go around Atlanta, I'm not sure which one it is, but there's only this stretch. There's one billboard, 2 sides to it. Guess who owns it? Buddy. And he's making pretty good money because everybody wants to be on that billboard with that. Sometimes when we make decisions, people go, oh, that didn't seem very wise. The world looks at us and says, not a good one. Not a good one at all. But sometimes we're going to do that. People will look at us and go, you're weird. You're a freak. But that's going to happen. We also realize that we will breathe a sigh of relief someday. For Buddy, he began to wonder too. It took a couple years for that decision to do. But can you imagine how Buddy feels today? I don't know how many people called him an idiot back in those days. But guess what? They ain't now. They ain't now with that. Now, it's kind of funny about this. What's funny about this proverb, if you think about it, it's an exact story, if you will, that you probably grew up with when we were kids. Maybe your mom or dad shared it with you. Did your mama ever read you the story of the 3 pigs? Right? Remember the story of the 3 pigs? Yeah, we know that. Those 3 pigs. You remember the story? One builds his house out of straw, one builds his house out of sticks. And when the big bad wolf comes along, he huffs and he puffs, and what happens? Not wise choices, were they? But there was brother who built his house out of what? Bricks. I hope he charged his brother's rent, by the way.